They called her a test subject. Now they worship her as a god, is the title of the story. In this story, we discuss about the galaxy ruled by forgotten empires and fractured truths. Rose was never meant to survive, only to be studied. Once an ordinary girl abducted for experimentation, she becomes the unwilling host of a cosmic relic, a living shard of ancient power once wielded by extinct gods. As the relic awakens inside her, Rose escapes her captors and begins a journey across worlds, not to conquer, but to reclaim herself. But the galaxy has other plans. She becomes a beacon, idolized, feared, followed. Planets begin to whisper her name in prayer. Empires fall to their knees. And in the shadows, Kaelen, a rival bearer of the same divine technology, rises with a singular goal: reshape reality alongside her, or destroy her for rejecting destiny. Haunted by a past stolen from her, and burdened by powers she never asked for, Rose must confront a choice far greater than good versus evil. Will she deny the throne others build beneath her feet, or rise, not as their god, but as something new? A story of cosmic power, identity, and resistance. They called her a test subject. Now they worship her as a god is a character-driven science fantasy epic about finding humanity in the face of divinity. She woke to silence. Not the absence of sound, but the kind that screamed, heavy and full, thick like a vacuum pressing against her skull. Cold metal pressed against her back, and her limbs were bound by smooth, humming restraints. Above her, a halo of soft white light flickered, casting long shadows across the circular chamber. Her name was Rose. That much she remembered. The rest was murky, fragmented memories of green fields, laughter, a mother's perfume, a song that hummed like summer. All of it felt lifetimes away. Now, only the sterile scent of antiseptic and ozone filled her senses. Figures moved beyond a pane of translucent blue glass, tall, sinewy silhouettes with elongated heads and multi-jointed limbs. Their voices were clicks and hisses, filtered through a synthetic hum she couldn't understand. But she knew. She wasn't the first. And she wouldn't be the last. Subject 47A is stabilizing. One of them murmured in their mechanical tongue, though the words resonated strangely in her mind, as though planted there. Translation chips, she guessed. Another violation. Her body throbbed, not with pain, but with heat, an alien warmth crawling under her skin like living electricity. Something inside her had changed. She didn't know what they'd done yet, only that it had taken dozens of failed subjects before her to get this far. She had heard their screams echo in the halls before silence reclaimed them. A door slid open behind the glass. One of them stepped forward, different, shorter, clad in a mantle adorned with iridescent glyphs. Its eyes, deep pools of black, studied her with reverence and fear. Flesh-bound seed, it whispered in a language that bypassed her ears entirely, pressing directly into her thoughts. You survived the convergence. Rose said nothing. Her throat was too dry, her thoughts a jumble of instinct and confusion. But her gaze held. Steady. Defiant. The being extended a hand and pressed it to the glass. The room's temperature dropped suddenly, breath crystallizing in the air. A pulse of golden light erupted from her chest, faint but unmistakable. She didn't scream. She didn't flinch. The light passed through the glass like water, washing over the figure, who staggered back with a cry. It bowed. Others in the observation bay gasped, recoiling. A sharp alarm rang out. Rose's restraints released with a soft hiss. She sat up slowly. Muscles ached but responded. No guards came. No weapons drawn. Just stunned silence. She looked at her hands. Nothing appeared different, but she felt different. Alive in a way that defied understanding, as if every cell in her body had begun humming with forgotten potential. The robed figure spoke again. They said the human genome was obsolete. Weak. But the relic chose you. The god seed found root in your flesh. A monitor flickered to life nearby. Her vitals danced across it. Heart rate steady, neural patterns unreadable. A warning overlay blinked in red. Unclassified entity detected. Restrict access. They think I'm a mistake, she rasped, her voice barely recognizable to herself. No, the being said. They think you're a weapon. The words settled like ash in her lungs. A weapon.
A tool.
Not a person. Again. She slid off the table, legs trembling slightly. Her bare feet touched the cold floor, but warmth bloomed outward with every step, golden traces forming beneath her as she walked. The scientists panicked, slamming controls, shouting commands. The door locked behind her clicked open without being touched. Power, that was the only word for it. Raw, unrestrained, ancient. She didn't understand it, but it was part of her now. Where are the others? She asked. The being looked down.
Gone.
You are the last.
Of course she was.
That's how stories like this always went. She entered the corridor, the being following at a cautious distance. Glass pods lined the walls, shattered, burned, empty. Remnants of the failed, the forgotten. Rose didn't weep.
Not then.
She simply walked, and with each step, more of the complex flickered to life or shorted out completely. Lights burst. Walls trembled. Technology bent to her presence or collapsed in rejection. Somewhere deep in the facility, alarms shrieked in growing hysteria. She passed soldiers frozen in place, paralyzed by some unseen force. They didn't move, didn't breathe. Statues in armor. The relic chamber lay ahead. She didn't know how she knew. She just did. The door slid open, and there it stood. A monolithic construct of metal and crystal, humming with the same pulse that now beat within her. The god seed. Ancient. Alien. Awakened by her presence. She reached out. Don't, the robed figure warned, trembling. You aren't ready. She touched it, and the world vanished. For a moment, there was no Rose, no lab, no pain. Just stars. A million voices whispering. A golden sea of memory and possibility. She stood at the edge of what she was and what she might become. Then the stars fell away. She awoke on the chamber floor, eyes burning with light. Behind her, the figure knelt. They'll fear you now, he whispered. But soon they will kneel. Rose looked up, chest rising and falling with calm precision. Not afraid. Not uncertain. Not anymore. Then let them. The power surged again, faint at first, like a tremor beneath the skin, but rapidly growing into a storm that crackled along her nerves. Rose stood in the shattered chamber, surrounded by the wreckage of containment units and scorched consoles. The relic had changed her. Not just her body, but her perception. She now saw things she couldn't describe, shimmering threads of energy woven through air, pulsing auras around even lifeless machines, echoes of intentions long buried in stone. No one dared approach. The surviving researchers had vanished into sealed corridors or lay unconscious, overcome by the energy blast. The robed being, the only one who had spoken to her like she mattered, still knelt behind her, head bowed, whispering ancient prayers meant for gods that no longer answered. She walked barefoot through the corridors, the lights above her dimming or exploding in succession. Automated defenses scanned her, hesitated, and then powered down. Doors slid open in silence. Walls vibrated with a low hum as if the entire facility was holding its breath. In the main control center, a dozen alien officers gathered before glowing holograms. They looked up, startled, when she entered. Weapons were raised. Some hesitated, but none fired. She didn't have to raise a hand. The air around her shimmered, and the metal in their rifles curled inward, melting like wax in a flame. One officer collapsed from the pressure of her presence alone. "I don't want to hurt you," she said quietly, and somehow her voice echoed as if it had been spoken by 1,000 of her across dimensions. "But I will leave." A door hissed open behind her. The path to the launch bay. The robed figure appeared again at her side. "If you go," he said carefully, "they'll send fleets. Assassins. Worse." "I'm not staying in a cage," Rose replied. "You are not what you were," he said. "The relic has rewritten you. I don't care what they wrote. I'm still me." He paused, observing her. You believe that now. But the more you use what's inside you, the less you'll resemble what you remember. Power has a cost. She looked away. Everything has a cost. But I won't let it be my soul. Together, they descended to the launch bay. Ships lined the walls, sleek, bone-colored vessels marked in ancient sigils. One of them, an elegant crescent-shaped craft, powered on as she approached, its systems humming awake in recognition. It responded to her without command. The relic's signature lived within her now, and everything connected to it responded like a limb remembering movement. She stepped inside. The ship sealed behind her. Alone, she sat in the central chamber, placing a hand on the console. A bright pulse passed from her palm to the controls, and the engines came alive with a soft roar. As the launch bay doors opened, the sky beyond revealed itself, a vast purple atmosphere, glowing with storms and ringed by distant stars. Rose launched into it without hesitation, the ship cutting through clouds like a blade. In orbit, cruisers patrolled the edge of the system, armed, watchful. They detected her instantly. Within moments, hails flooded her comms. Unidentified vessel, return to base. You are in violation of Protocol 9. She didn't answer. Warning shots blazed past her wings. The next ones would aim true. She closed her eyes. The relic within her flared. Energy surged out through the ship like breath into lungs. In an instant, the onboard systems expanded, rewriting themselves in real time. The ship vanished from enemy scanners. Not cloaked, absent. Outside logic. One of the cruisers fired a plasma bolt. It hit nothing. Rose had already slipped past them, cutting through the folds of space like a needle through fabric. And then she was free, alone in the void. Stars stretched infinitely ahead. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't go back. The silence of space wrapped around her like a warm cocoon. Here, her thoughts were louder, the sensations deeper. She saw visions in her mind's eye, planets cloaked in gold, beings kneeling in temples, her name etched in languages she had never spoken. A child reached for her with glowing eyes. A fleet bowed before her. Fire consumed an empire. She shook the images away. No, she whispered. I'm not that. But even as she said it, the ship responded. Coordinates appeared across the console. One word pulsed in a language long dead, yet perfectly understood. Home. The coordinates led to a world she'd never seen, yet felt inexplicably drawn to. She traced the glowing glyphs, hesitating. Was it a trick? A memory? Or destiny? As the stars bent and the ship leapt forward, she realized something simple and terrifying. She was no longer running from what they made her. She was chasing what she had become. And the galaxy was already watching. The world was nothing like she expected. Rose's ship emerged from the warp fold above a golden planet veined with rivers of light and crowned with storm-ringed mountains. Cities bloomed across its surface in radiant geometry, alive with structures that pulsed like breathing organisms. Yet there was no noise, no movement. The sensors picked up no life signs. A ghost world. Or perhaps something deeper, something hiding in plain sight. The ship descended without resistance, guided by invisible hands. It touched down on a platform of seamless obsidian surrounded by towering arches etched with the same script she'd seen etched into her own skin days before. As she stepped onto the surface, the air around her shimmered. It wasn't just oxygen, it was charged, intelligent, alive in a way that whispered, "We see you." She walked alone toward the heart of the structure, her reflection rippling across the glass-like floor. Every step echoed into silence, and yet she felt watched.
Judged.
Not by eyes, but by the memory of this place. A test she hadn't agreed to, but was already failing. At the center stood a monolith, a pillar of shifting crystal, humming in tandem with the relic still fused in her chest. As she approached, it activated. Holograms flickered to life. Images, history, symbols. A war that had ended before Earth had formed. A species that had reached beyond the stars and seeded their power across galaxies. A final choice. They had created the relic to house divinity, a fragment of consciousness capable of reshaping reality, but too dangerous for any one being to wield. They had locked it away in fragments, hidden among the stars, hoping time would bury it. But it had found her, or perhaps chosen her. The hologram changed, and her own face appeared. Then a second figure, taller, cloaked in shadows, eyes like twin eclipses. The image burned with tension. A prophecy. 2 vessels. One to create, one to destroy. Behind her, footsteps rang out. She turned. He stood tall, wrapped in a cloak of black and silver, skin faintly luminescent like moonlight on obsidian. His gaze locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. But he didn't look surprised. "I knew you'd come," he said. "Who are you?" Rose asked. "I'm what you were supposed to be," he replied. "Before the relic chose you instead." His name was Kaelen, once human like her or close enough. Captured long before her, tested, augmented, altered by the same beings who had tried and failed to shape gods. But where she resisted, he had embraced it. Where she clung to humanity, he had shed it. "You still think this is about escape," he said, circling her. "But you've been drawn here, not by accident, but design. The relic awakened because the universe has begun to fracture. A correction must be made." "I didn't ask for this," she said coldly. "No one does. But you're in it now. And whether you realize it or not, you're a beacon. They're watching you, millions of minds, scattered across the stars. Some will kneel, some will fight, but all will follow." He extended his hand, not in threat but in offering. "We can shape it together. The future. Tear down the systems that caged us both. Become more than tools, become law." Rose stepped back. "I'm not here to rule." "You think refusing makes you noble?" he snapped. "You think walking away is peace? It's abdication. You think this power will let you hide forever? Every breath you take ripples across time now. You will decide what comes next, whether you mean to or not." The relic in her chest pulsed in warning. She could feel it responding to him. 2 halves of something ancient, magnetic, unstable. He wasn't lying. She could see it now, the 2 of them, mirrors at war. Not enemies, not quite. But not allies either. Not anymore. "You already chose," she said, her voice calm. "So did you," Kaelen whispered. Without another word, he turned and vanished into the shadows of the temple, the structure parting for him like mist.
She didn't follow.
She stood in the silence that followed, trying to steady her breath. Her fingers trembled. Not from fear, but from certainty. The war wasn't coming. It had already started. And she was its center. She looked back at the holograms, the fractured history, the warnings, the destiny they tried to write. But Rose had already broken the script. She had no intention of being anyone's prophecy. Yet, deep in her core, the relic pulsed again, this time, not in warning, in anticipation. The stars were quieter now. Rose stood atop a plateau of dark stone, high above the surface of the forgotten world. Behind her, the ancient temple pulsed faintly with residual energy, its once godly architecture now dormant, as if exhausted by the confrontation. In the days since Kaelen vanished into its depths, the planet had remained still, expectant. It was no longer just a place. It was a crucible, and she had not emerged untouched. Beneath her skin, the relic had grown louder, not in sound, but in presence. She could feel it threading through her thoughts, weaving itself into instinct. It was no longer foreign. It was her. She didn't know where the boundary lay between girl and god, or if one even remained. Ships had begun arriving. At first, they lingered at the edge of the system, silent, watching. Then a few approached, descending through the skies like falling stars. Not to fight. Not yet. They came to kneel. The first was a nomad fleet from the Sirius Void, led by a captain whose face bore ceremonial scars and whose body carried the last bloodline of a fallen world. They brought offerings, data crystals, relics, and stories carved into bone. The captain spoke no words, only fell to his knees before Rose and whispered, "We dreamed of you before we knew your name." Then came the Veilous Ascendancy, once enemies to all sentient life, now fractured and leaderless. Their emissary was machine-born, plated in obsidian and adorned with pale blossoms that bloomed only in vacuum. She too bowed, her synthesized voice tinged with awe. The seed has awoken. The storm will follow. Rose had not asked for devotion, but it found her anyway. In the silence between stars, her image spread. She was no longer a fugitive or a test subject. She had become symbol, catalyst, divinity refracted through the lens of desperate civilizations. She hated it. Why are they doing this? She asked the robed figure. Yes, he had followed her still. Faithful, even when she questioned everything. They don't know me. They don't even want to. They want salvation, he replied gently. And you shine brighter than their gods ever did. But I'm not their god, she snapped. I'm just surviving. He looked at her with sadness. That's all gods ever do. On the 7th day, Kaelen returned. His arrival was not quiet. The sky split in two, the clouds turned black, and lightning danced in silence around his obsidian cruiser. He descended like judgment, his presence no longer restrained, but burning with cosmic certainty. His eyes, once eclipses, now blazed like twin suns. And with him came others, not soldiers, believers, changed like him. He met Rose at the heart of the temple once more, where their first confrontation had twisted the air. You see it now, he said. The shape of it, the inevitability. I see you haven't given up, she replied. You think refusing the throne is rebellion. But it's just delay. They will make you into something, willing or not. At least I chose what I became. I am choosing, every second, not to become you. He stepped forward. Then prove it. The relic inside her flared, responding to his challenge. The temple walls trembled as energy surged around them. Every step he took crackled with gravity. Every breath she drew glowed with potential. Opposite forces. Same origin. I won't fight you, she said. You already are. The words struck deeper than they should have. Because he was right. Every time she rejected the role the galaxy tried to give her, she made herself something new, something powerful. The relic didn't feed on violence. It fed on intention, on will, and hers had sharpened into something unbreakable. She raised her hand, not to strike, but to release. The energy within her exploded outward, not in rage, but in light. Pure, blinding. It wrapped around Kaelen and his disciples like a rising sun, not destroying, but transforming. When it faded, he stood unharmed, but changed. Not physically, but in silence. I see, he whispered. She turned away. Kaelen did not stop her. Outside, the fleets had grown. Thousands of ships now orbited the sky, their captains waiting for her word. Prayers were being broadcast in 1,000 dialects. Statues were already being carved. Rose stepped into the light of the dawn and looked up. She was no one's god, but she was everyone's hope. That was worse, and she would carry it anyway. The next story on this channel is Humanity Was Silent. Then the skies opened over their capital.